And please hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm, as well as hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Universities are clashing. Baylor University down in, I think, Waco, Texas, and then Boston University, which is the red mark up in Boston University, Massachusetts. They are kind of essentially suing each other or going back and forth over the BU logo that is interlocking with each other. So let's kind of pull this up here really quickly, and we're going to go through it quickly, man. It's not that long, so it should not take. Let me see, which one is it, man? Which one is it? I think it's this one. I think it's this one. Let me tee it up for you guys. Here we go. So it's not that. So Baylor is suing Boston University for trademark infringement. Do I want to read this? I don't want to read that part of it. Let's go to the nature of the action. No, I want to read that. Let's go to the facts. Baylor and its interlocking BU mark. Baylor is a private Christian university and the oldest continually operating institution of higher education in the state of Texas. I did not know that. Wow. Baylor was originally chartered in 1845. Sheesh. By the Republic of Texas and later reincorporated under the laws of the state of Texas in 1886. So 41 years later, Baylor boasts an enrollment of over 20,000 undergraduate and graduate students and more than 160 living alumni. That's actually not that many alumni. I'm from the great state of, I went to Michigan State University. Let me see how many alumni, not to get derailed from this thing. Michigan State University alumni. 160,000 is not that many, in my opinion. How many, I'm not going to do all that. Yeah, but 160,000 is not that many alumni. Baylor provides a wide curriculum of educational service through its colleges and schools at both the undergraduate and graduate levels. In addition to its academic excellence, Baylor is known for its leading athletics. I wouldn't say that. Since 2000, the Baylor Bears have won the NCAA Division I national titles in men and women's basketball, men's tennis, as well as many conference championships. Baylor teams compete nationally, and this is essentially the BU. The interlocking BU is one of the Baylor's most recognizable identity destinations for the university educational research and athletic offerings. So you see the BU that interlocks with each other. You see it on some clothing here. See, like this is a skirt, this is on a hoodie, and far left is on a t-shirt. As a result of Baylor's long and extensive use of the interlocking BU, Baylor has developed an enormous amount of goodwill, public recognition, and strong rights in those marks. And this just shows you the all the classes that they have it in for clothing. They have it for calendars, notebooks, decals, note cards, which is class 16. They have it in bags, which is class 18, cups, which is class 21. Other things, 24, 41. I'm not going to go through all of them. Let's go to Boston University's. I'm not sure what's going on here. Why did it just cut out on me like that? Let's see here, man. Let's pull it back up. I don't know why it cut out on me like that. So defendant is an institution of higher education based in Boston. So while Boston initials are BU, Boston has primarily and historically used stylized marks that display the letter side by side. And Baylor does not object to this use. So it seems like what Baylor is saying is, hey, we have the interlocking BU. Boston University has always used their BU side by side, which we're cool with. As discussed herein, Boston recently commenced use of an interlocking BU design that is essentially identical to Baylor's registered interlocking BU. So essentially, the BU that's on my screen here to the right, that's from Boston University that they recently started using. So let's see what they're talking about. In 1987, Baylor applied to register the interlocking BU in class 25. Boston opposed the application. The school subsequently entered into a coexistence agreement in 1988 relating to their respective uses of BU. Now, I'm not sure if you guys kind of peep what they're saying is, and I'm going to kind of break this down to you. I really should have 100,000 subscribers. I'm going to break this down to you. So Baylor was trying to, and the attorney for Baylor just tried to kind of skim through that, but your boy got that good eye. So Baylor, they were looking to register their interlocking BU, which you see to the left, in 87. However, Boston University opposed that. Now, I will tell you, to oppose a mark, typically you have to have a trademark for that mark. You typically don't see people opposing marks, and that still happens today. If a trademark, typically once a trademark, the USPTO says a trademark is allowed, then it goes to a 30-day opposition period where they give it to the public. They allow anyone from the public to oppose a mark over a 30-day time period. And typically people who have registered trademarks, who they think their mark, that the the mark who is publicly available is confusingly similar, they can oppose that mark before it actually issues. So it seems like this lawsuit is saying Boston University opposed the Baylor mark. Well, if they oppose the mark, that typically means that, number one, they have a trademark for it. So that, I think that's interesting. That was glossed over by the Baylor's attorney. But then part two, they entered into a coexistence agreement. And what a coexistence agreement is in trademark law, that's pretty much saying, hey, both sides are agreeing that they can use the mark for specific use without it being confusingly similar. The USPTO may say, hey, you can't use this mark company X because it's confusingly similar to the mark of Y. But the company Y can enter into a coexistence agreement with company X and say, hey, we're giving you permission to use that mark. So Baylor's attorneys is saying, hey, they entered into a coexistence agreement, Baylor and Boston, the following year, that's giving both companies permission to use the mark. But that tells me that Boston University has some type of trademarks in there before Baylor registered it. That's how I look at that. Let me know if that makes sense to you guys as I kind of pull back up the lawsuit. But let me know if that makes sense to you guys, because I do want you guys to get some information from the actual lawsuit. So the agreement acknowledges that the parties must be able to coexist by using the letters BU for their respective universities, explaining use of a school's initials to refer to the school is commonplace, and it would greatly harm Boston University and Baylor if they were prohibited from using a BU in connection with the service. So it seemed like the coexistence agreement allowed both schools, Baylor and Boston, to use the BU. It seems like what paragraph 20 is talking about. Let's go to paragraph 21. So Boston University has primarily used initials BU side by side on a horizontal plane for many years. Baylor does not object. So they cool with the side-by-side used by Boston University. The agreement reflects that the parties' agreement to coexist with the initials BU and created no rights of use of the identical interlocking BU stylized mark for Boston. So it seems like the coexistence agreement between the two parties did not give Boston University, at least according to Baylor, did not give Boston University the right to use the BU interlocking trademark. Baylor, or Boston rather, subsequently withdrew its opposition to Baylor's application for the interlocking BU and then proceeded was dismissed with prejudice. Okay, whatever. Baylor then became aware of Boston University's use of an essential identical and or confusingly similar interlocking BU in connection with the promotion and the sales of 3 hat styles. When Boston use later appeared to be expanding, Baylor communicated, hold on, Boston. Y'all going too far with this. However, Boston did not cease use of its interlocking BU mark after Baylor objection. So it seemed like it was some type of cease and desist letter sent by Baylor University to Boston, and this is Boston's use. You see the BU there on the shirt. See the BU on the hat. I'm not sure if this is a drawer or some type of shelf or storage compartment. Down to the left, you have a BU from Boston University on what looks to be a sweater on a water bottle. So they're using this BU interlocking all over the place. Boston is. Indeed, Boston now uses interlocking BU in connection with the, hey, look, they got these boys on the club sports team on sales. Yeah, Boston, they went all out. They went all out. This seems to be the website. And Mule Sports, just take me back to my days at Michigan State. So this is the BU that, the primary marks, the BU side by side is what Baylor was okay with. But these BU interlocking down below, Baylor has an issue with. So Boston interlocking BU mark is essentially identical to Baylor's, and that's why you have this trademark infringement lawsuit. See here, let me get to some good stuff. Baylor has notified Boston of its trademark rights and has attempted to resolve this dispute prior to filing his lawsuit. Indeed, Baylor has made clear that, consistent with the parties' 1988 agreement, its objection is not to defend its use of BU alone, but rather defend its use of interlocking BU design. However, Boston has refused to cease and desist. I want to read this part of it. So I'm not going to read count 1, but I will finish off with the effects of defendant activities. Boston's unauthorized use of the interlocking BU mark is likely to cause consumer confusion. Boston's unauthorized use of interlocking BU mark falsely designates the origin of Boston's goods and services and falsely suggests a connection with Baylor. So they pretty much saying, hey, man, this is confusingly similar and this is throwing off. You essentially coming into our territory and confusing our peoples. Unless these acts of Boston University are restrained by this court, they will continue. So what do you guys think? Now, this is interesting. Why do you think Boston just kind of flipped the script? It seems like based on this coexistence agreement, Baylor and Boston were in agreement to both using the BU marks. And of that agreement, it seems like Boston's BU mark was side by side, not the interlocking. Seems like over the last 5 or 6 years, 7 years, for whatever reason, Boston started using this interlocking BU mark, even though the coexistence agreement did not give them rights to do so. Now, maybe the coexistence agreement and this one of these things, that agreement is not made publicly available. Maybe it is publicly available, and I should have kind of brought it up. However, it seems like, according to Baylor, that coexistence agreement did not give Boston University the right to use the interlocking design. But here's the thing: they didn't say that Boston University can't use it. You see what I'm saying? Because it's one thing to say that, hey, we both can use the BU mark, but it's one thing to say that, hey, you can't use the BU mark Boston University that's interlocking. You see what I'm saying? So I should have probably pulled that up. I did not pull it up. My bad on that, as I'm kind of thinking in real time. There definitely is a coexistence agreement, but does that coexistence agreement prohibit Boston University from using interlocking BU, or does it say, hey, both parties can use the BU marks? That's essentially I'm assuming that Boston is like, hey, this agreement is saying that's what attorneys from Boston University will argue, that the coexistence agreement is saying, hey, we both can use it. It does not prohibit Boston University from using the interlocking BU. And Baylor University is going to say, hey, the agreement is pretty much prohibiting Boston University from using the BU interlocking. So that's essentially what the issue is between Boston University and Baylor. I kind of bring you guys the latest and greatest on that one. I'll tell you what, man, you get a tongue-tied saying Baylor and Boston for 20 minutes. I was going to go through this daycare one, and I think I'm going to go through it here really quickly because it is kind of, I think, important. So the last lawsuit that I want to break down, and we did a couple lawsuits back-to-back weeks. We did 2 lawsuit breakdown.